Good afternoon, folks. This is Steve A., and this is A Voice in the City. And today I'm going to talk to you about something that is kind of on my mind, and that is church. And I know there's a lot of you out there who go to church every Sunday and you like the churches that you are going to. And probably one of the most important things about finding a church is finding one that actually teaches the Bible. Another option is finding one that has really, really good, solid teaching, one that you enjoy going, maybe one that has comfortable seats. And the most important thing is having people that are over there that you have something in common with, because we're all different. Now, certainly with me, I'll just give you kind of a little background on myself. I'm kind of a little bit of a lone. I haven't. My mother passed away from diabetes over 20 years ago, and she was only 58 years old. So I'm pretty much limited in resources. I live by myself most of the time. I have a few friends, and I don't really have any family. And so basically, I depend on my church family to get by. And I think it's very, very important that for me to have some sort of a community. So I want to start off before I get into what I want to talk about with a few verses. And one of the things I want to touch on today is I think it is very, very important to be part of a church that you feel comfortable in, one that you enjoy, and also one that makes you feel like family. So I'm going to kind of share a little bit about my experience in church. I do want to give you a little bit of a praise report because I think that there are some positive things that happen in churches, and you just have to know where to find them. But the verses I'm going to be talking about is going to be about community, and it says here's out of Romans 12:4 and 5. For just as each of us has one body with many members, and these members do not have all the same function, so in Christ we, though many, form one body, and each member belongs to others. And then here's another one. Escalentes 4, 9, and 12. Two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and no one has to help them up. A cord of three strands is not quickly broken. Now here's a good one. This is out of Acts. This is a good one. It's called Acts 2:40, Acts 2:40 verses 42 through 47. Highlights the early Christian church where believers devoted themselves to fellowship, shared their meals with gladness, and met each other's physical and spiritual needs. Now, that's probably one of the most important things is reaching out to others. There are a lot of people in our churches that have needs. I see, and I'm probably not the only one that's like this. And I've visited several different churches over the past few months, and I just recently left a church, and I'm still somewhat involved over there. I'm with a few people there, but I basically decided to go to a different church because I started feeling very, very lonely at my last place. And I also got hurt at the last church that I was over there. And I decided I feel very lonely and I need to find a place that where I get to feel more like family. So just as my friend James, I just want to put a little plug out there. My friend James Carter, he has an organization called A Voice Crying in the Desert Outreach.com, so, .org or whoever, and you need to take a look into him and take a look at his ministry. And I kind of partner with him. And he's talked about this so many different times where it's important to, if you're going to church, community is one of the most important things. Now, looking at my last church, I mean, I did everything. I was there for probably almost more than a decade, And but I just felt, I just felt more and more that the people that were there were different. They were different from me. I found myself coming to church every week, just sitting up at the front row. But I don't know about you, but I felt very, very lonely sometimes. There were times that I felt very, very lonely. I didn't feel I was connecting with anybody. And I do understand, all of us have, and I know I have this responsibility. Everybody has a responsibility to reach out to others. But I did feel that there were a lot of the people that were there. I didn't feel like I had anything in common with anybody. And I just felt like I wasn't really making any friends. So about a year ago, I was visiting several other churches, and I found this new church that I'm going to now and after about a year, and right now, just a little bit of good news, I'm actually serving on the welcome team twice a month, the first and the beginning of the month. And the other good news is I actually made two new friends at the church after about a year. So that is kind of my praise report, and I do think church should be that way. I think if you're somebody like me and you're alone, I think you need to be part of a church where people get to know you, where you can get to share, you can tell your story, people can get to know you, and just be around people that will maybe you can share your testimony or whatever. Have a community group. That's probably one of the most important things. Now, at the last church that I was at, I had a couple of other people. We tried to possibly get people together. We tried to even start a game night on the weekends, but for some reason or for whatever, hardly anybody showed up. We probably got maybe one or two people, and then, maybe they got a few people, and then it turned out that I was the only one that was showing up to the game nights on a Saturday or a Sunday night. So we ended up having to get rid of, and I just feel so lonely. I feel as if there's people there that I have almost nothing in common with. So I left there and I decided, well, I'm going to go to this new place. So I'm going to this other church it's got a great variety of people. There's a lot of different families there. They have a more bigger variety. They have a little bit of breakfast in the morning, like little finger foods. They have coffee in the morning. But there is a good opportunity to meet people. All the people are over there. They're all friendly. There's people there that greet you at the door. I see some people hug you. There's a lady over there, a young girl. I guess she's maybe 25, 26 years old. She's very friendly. And everybody hugs everybody. Everybody says hello, good morning. And that's a really a good thing. And by me making two friends is pretty important. But what should church be like? What is church all about? At least to my definition. Now, before I get into that, there's a book out there by a former retired pastor by the name of Bill Calvin, and you can probably pick it up on Amazon or wherever books are sold. And it's called Belonging. And basically what it's about, it teaches you how to be a church, how to be a more welcoming community. I've gone maybe just a couple of chapters. I'm going to read probably more about it in the book. And maybe in the next few videos, I'm going to talk more about what I read in the book. But building a church building a community is probably one of the most important things. And for those churches out there that may be struggling, maybe they have high turnover. Maybe they're not bringing enough in tithing, or there's just so much turnover in the church where people are just coming and going. And I think it's all important to not just have a church where it's just the same old thing every day, every week, where you're just going to have music. singing, and then you're going to listen to some guy talking for 45 minutes, and then you're going to have more music, and then you're going to get up, and then there's going to be prayer, and then you're going to get up and you're going to go home, and you're going to come back next week and do the same thing. That's not the a proper way to run a church. The proper way to run a church is getting to know people, reaching out to the lost, reaching out to people in your community, and maybe not just in the church, maybe getting out there in the community, maybe find a poor neighborhood, maybe there's an apartment complex in a neighborhood, maybe there's people out there that need prayer. I haven't had anybody come to my apartment in this area, and there's a lot of people that where I live, and they need to know who God is. Just going to them, maybe knocking on their door, I mean, just hanging out there, finding out if there's anything they need, and getting to know them, getting to know people in your community. Maybe walk those neighborhoods that around the area that you're in. Just go to some of these houses and maybe do it in a non-confrontational way. Because there's a lot of people out there, and I understand because I've been walking a lot of these neighborhoods, and there's a lot of people that are very hostile toward church, and maybe they're hostile toward prayer, and they're just not the type of people that maybe they've never stepped into a church, or maybe they don't want to go. But it is your job to reach them. It is your job to bring them in and show them who God is, not just come to church every week like a show and be just what we call Christians in name only. That's not how to if you want to be a Christian, if you want to be a true believer, show them that you're a Christian. Show them who you really are. Show them that you're the person that you say you are. Talk to them, say hello to them, get to know them, ask them questions, find out if there's anything they need. And for those on the other side, kind of like me, who maybe we're not really good at talking to people, talk to them, say hello to them, explain to them who you are, tell them, share with them, sit with them, tell them what's going on in your life, and tell them your story. And that's probably most important things. There's a lot of people, and most of these churches today, whether they be big or small, a lot of them have become like big corporations. They've become like entertainment venues. They've become like businesses. And sad to say, unfortunately, a lot of these places are sort of like bars. You walk in, and it's just you gotta you there. What people think church is, it's not what you think. Basically, you can go into a lot of these places, and it's no different as if you were to walk into a bar or a mixer. There's a lot of people there, and especially if you're like me and you don't know a lot of people, you've got to sit there and try to navigate the people there, and you got to find people to talk to, and you got to figure out, what would I have in common with these people? There's so many different people there, and you got to figure out your niche. You got to figure out where you're likely going to fit in order for you to actually have any type of connection while you're there. But I do think, as my friend James says, church should not be a place where people are sitting by themselves, or sort of like I do sometimes, where you're sitting up at the front row and nobody is talking to you. Church is supposed to be like a community. Now, I will say at my last church, I did make two friends, and my friend James is in there. And at this new place, I did make two friends already. I'm very hopeful to what might happen in the future, and we'll just have to see how things go on. But there are good churches out there, and there are bad churches out there. You just have to find the right one. But if you're one of those churches that are struggling to retain members, if your donations are down, or if you're not bringing in enough people, or people are not attending your church, then it's your job. You got to figure out, what is it that you're doing? What are you doing right, and what are you doing wrong? What are you doing as a church to reach people for Christ? What are you doing out there to build community in your church? What are you doing to keep people there? Are you doing your part? to keep people there? How is God moving? Tell me that. What are you doing out in that community that you're located in? Are you walking the neighborhoods? Are you going to people's houses? Are you finding out if there's people out there that are in need? Maybe there's homeless people in the area. Maybe there's single mothers out there. Maybe there's people who are struggling with mental illness. Maybe there's addiction. What is it that you're doing in the church? Is it just all inside the church if it's just going to be music and all show? No, that's not what church is supposed to be. Church should be a place where they have solid biblical teaching, and people there that are strong believers, and people there that are living out their faith, living by what they say, and not just Christians in name only. T- Continuing to tell God's story, living out what is said in the Bible, showing people you care. That should be one of the most important things. Now, I will say that when I get finished with the book, I'm going to try to touch more on community, probably in a future video. But I will say that, all of us have to do our part in church. I have to do my part. We all have to reach out to people. We have to open up our mouths. We have to go to them because they're not obviously going to go to us. But every one of us has the responsibility. I have to do things on my part, and others have to do their part. And it's also important that you gotta find the right church that's right for your family. You also gotta have find people out there that you have something in common with, and also gotta find churches that have solid biblical teaching and that are really strong on community. Because church is not just what's in the building on Sunday morning. It's what's out there, and that's where you got to be. So, from what that's pretty much all I wanted to say this afternoon. So this is Steve A with A Voice in the City, and I will talk to you soon and possibly in another video. Bye bye.